they ramped up efforts to build relations between Greenland and the United States, building mutual economic interests, which resulted in the opening of this consulate. Just in 2020, the U.S. now has a diplomatic presence, a physical presence in Greenland, this big frozen island that no global superpower really thought was that important until recently.
I'm pleased to announce we will reopen our...
Denmark is not giving this away. Are you insane, law, brother? I don't think it's about what Denmark wants or needs. I think if there's enough, I'm sure Iraq didn't want to be invaded either, you know? Now, obviously, Denmark and Iraq are different, but still. Trump's talking about invading Canada and Mexico, man. They're about to find some weapons of mass destruction in Greenland. Oops. Turns out Denmark had chemical weapons. They were using mustard gas on their own civilian population, I promise. Trust.
Our consulate in Nuuk, Greenland this summer for the first time since 1953.
So this actually reminds me of...
You're crazy if you think the U.S. will go and just take it. Name a single example where the U.S. didn't respect the wishes of the natives. True. I can't think of any. The only thing that keeps it relatively neutral would be, I guess, the interests of other global power players like China and regional players like Russia as well. That basically is the only thing I think that keeps this in somewhat of a limbo, rather than America coming in and being like, nah, that's ours actually. Is Greenland Sunni or Shia?
A story I did a while back when I was up in...
I know this is all, but I had to wait 10 minutes to send this. You have single-handedly convinced me to start nicotine. Thank you, Hasan. Man, shut the fuck up. Don't even joke about that shit, dumbass.
Arctic for Vox Borders, and I was visiting a Russian consulate on this little island. And it truly never ceases to surprise me that in an era of like sophisticated alliances and like international institutions and like sophisticated military weaponry, we still resort to just putting human bodies and buildings in places that we want to have influence in. Like it's a board game. Some things will never change. But as the U.S. looks to deepen its ties with Greenland, so is another power, another global superpower, one that, incidentally, is nowhere near the Arctic. But who knows that if they want to be the top dog on the world stage, they're gonna need a foothold in this new region.
A race for resources could lead to a boil-over.
A lot of focus is placed on the Chinese. They do control a significant amount of supply.
We are so adamant that these areas of the world...
Australians love mining, dude. They can't get enough of it. It's not enough that they've mined the shit out of their own fucking island, that they're mining all around the world. They love mining. They love miners.
Whether the arteries of trade and shipping remain peaceful.
There is a worry of this Chinese possible infiltration in the country.
In 2017, Greenland wanted to build more airports, like the one behind me that they're building. Here in Greenland, they don't have a lot of infrastructure for big airplanes, so you can't get like big commercial flights in and out of large amounts of the country. You have to fly around in small planes and helicopters, which is kind of cool if you're like going on an adventure. But if you're trying to develop your country, you need bigger airports. The problem is building airports is expensive, and no one wanted to fund this except for China. The Prime Minister of Greenland went to Beijing, their friend, and said, hey, do you want to help us fund our new airport? China was like, yes, we will give you a loan to fund the airports, but it has to be...
I'm Danish. Greenland can decide what they want for themselves according to Denmark. As of the Self-Government Act of 2009, Greenland is effectively self-governed, but Denmark provides free education by making them travel to Denmark and free healthcare. Since this colonial relationship is still problematic and has issues, but even anti-Denmark Greenlandic people have said they'd rather be under Denmark forever than be under the U.S. Yeah, that makes sense. Wait till American propaganda comes in. The only thing, like, notice how there was a chatter, Delayed Autistic Guppy, that was talking about this yesterday. The colonial relationship within Greenland and Denmark is, like, objectively kept Greenland poor. You will probably see that sort of propaganda resurface over and over again, talking about how, like, they'll go and they'll find, like a group of natives, for example, and they'll pump, and they'll be like, look, these guys organically want to be a part of America. They hate Denmark. And, Leslie Stahl will do a 60 minutes feed on the native population that desperately wants American contracts and are terrified of the Chinese intervention in the country. And then they'll manufacture consent that they'll beef up a separatist movement. You're going to get the most annoying Radlib accounts tweeting about how problematic it is. Yeah, this repressed minority that wants freedom, they yearn for freedom. They want American contracts instantly. And then they'll say, Hasan, why do you personally hate autonomy? Why do you hate the autonomy of native Greenlanders who simply want better American contracts? They want what's best for themselves. Why are you getting in there? Why are you being so paternalist where you think you know what's best? Keep Leslie Stahl out of your mouth. It would be Scott Pelley easy. No, it'll be Leslie. That if the Trump administration behaves in a more competent manner like the Democrats have whenever they have any sort of imperial ambition. The Trump administration, on the other hand, was very ineffective. The State Department was probably at its weakest, I think, under the Trump. Like the Democrats certainly are better crafting a narrative. Republicans used to be better at this. Like obviously the war on terror and the propaganda that ensued in the Bush administration was pretty. But since then, I would say that the Democrats have taken over that. And the Trump admin was genuinely ineffective at doing this sort of. Like they are much more openly cruel and don't engage in enough like clandestine operations. No psychological operations whatsoever. They just go and they assassinate. The Qasem Soleimani assassination comes. It's the type of shit I think if done under a Democratic leadership would be done with a lot more manufactured. Whereas like under the Trump administration, it's more brute force and more where they're just like, yeah, no, we killed him. What are you going to do about it? Or we're pulling our troops out of Syria, except for the oil fields where they will maintain the oil fields. Why wouldn't we take the Syrian oil? Are you fucking stupid? It's not as tactical. So we'll see. We'll see how Trump operates. We'll see navigates this.
Be a Chinese construction company that builds the airports. And Greenland was like, okay, let's do it. That sounds great. And immediately over.
Is China getting so much money? They're dumping a shitload of money into my country, Pakistan, as well. What do you mean? It's the manufacturing hub for the.
In the United States, alarm bells start going off. This is not good. The context here is that China has a habit of giving loans to countries that they want to like have influence in, like in the future. They do this a lot in Africa. Like they give loans knowing that they now have leverage over all of these countries who now owe them money. Anyway, so the United States.
Okay, that's once again infinitely more favorable conditions, a lot more opportunities for loan forgiveness, no immediate austerity, austerity measures kicking.